I want to welcome each and every one of you to the North England Conference Church Clerks training. It is 21st of January 2024, and we hope that this training will be a good tool and a reminder for all of us as we have to do our best for serving God in this capacity. I want to particularly single out those who have accepted for the first time around to be church clerks in your local church. Welcome to the church clerk family. I know probably going through the presentation and what you've heard so far will be a bit daunting for you, but you're not alone. We are in this together. And if God has put this on your heart, it may be because He sees the qualities that you have and how He wants to use you going forward. So thank you to each and every one of you for taking part in this training. This training will consist of 7 main parts. You will see most of the details on your screen, and the plan is to pause and get some questions if there are any after each section, and this way hopefully we'll get to make more points clear to you and to those who will be watching this later on. So without further ado, let's begin with the introduction, which actually covers the point of where the church sits, and I would say in the 21st century, because many times, particularly after a COVID period, we still have people, members, we still know, and sometimes we do it as well. We sit at home on Sabbath and we fellowship by attending Zoom programs or joining the YouTube, watching something from across the pond even. But there is something special about being asked to serve and the fellowship that we have in the community of church. God asked the church to be a community of people sharing a common purpose and fellowship. And we see this theme through and through, both in the Old and the New Testament. But in Ephesians chapter 1, verse 22, we read, His body, the fullness of Him who filled everything in every way. God has not, if God wanted us to be scattered around the world, He wouldn't have instructed the disciples to baptize, to teach, baptize, and empower those who believe in Him to congregate and to form the nuclear churches. God called His body, which is the church that we're talking about, for the purpose of establishing in a saving relationship with Him. And it goes without saying, sometimes we may feel discouraged. We go to church and we are lifted up. Sometimes we may lift somebody up who comes to church through the power of the Holy Spirit. Now, when we think about the church, we need to remind ourselves that the church is not just there to fill in a postcode, but it has a special call. And that call is to show the love of God to the world. The church is a servant body. It serves the Lord in praise, serves one another in love, and serves the world in humility. Again, in Ephesians 2, verse 11, we read, For we are His workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. We are called to be priests. That's what the Bible tells us. And our priesthood is to each other within the church and to the world. And particularly when it comes to the church clerks, like every other church officer, it is a ministry that is served under God. And every Christian believer is called to minister, gifted by the Holy Spirit, according to what we read in Ephesians chapter 4. So I hope you are excited about what God is able to do through you. And many times, as I travel around the conference and receive communication from those from 147 churches we have across the NEC, particularly the church clerk responsibility is one that requires a lot of dedication and a lot of commitments, a lot of time, and many times we think that it's got nothing to do with ministry. But I hope and pray that none of you here would leave today still believing that, if that's what you think. God has appointed you to serve in this capacity because the skills that you have are very much a crucial part of what the church is able to do. I would submit to us that, yes, it's important to have sermons. Yes, it's important to have good music, but ultimately all these things are to serve the members, the visitors, those who are part of the body of Christ. And we as church clerks keep an accurate record, and we put the emphasis on the value that is given to the life of each and every individual. So how do we serve as church clerks? The role varies from church to church, and I think if you have friends from another country, they will tell you how they do things over there. In United States, I know some churches even pay church clerks. I know, who would have thought? But it's such an important task, and it requires a really good skill that, yeah, particularly on that part of the world, they really value. Not that we don't value here, but that's it's a job that happens throughout the week, and it involves other things as well. But if I was to share with you 4 main responsibilities, I think all of us, no matter where we are in the world, we would agree that being part of the church clerk family, one of the big responsibilities is be a secretary church, secretary to the church board and the business meeting. Those are probably the 2 most important administrative meetings that we have in the church, and they should not and cannot happen without somebody from the church clerk family being there. We will talk about that in just a minute, just in case you're not able to attend those things. But obviously that's the local church administrative, but the church membership. Information is the most precious thing that we have in the 21st century, more precious than gold. At least that's how big corporations put it. And unless we know who we serve, unless we know what people desire, what is their line of thoughts and their background, we will not be able to be as effective. And this is where having a church membership record is really crucial. Keeping up the church records goes without saying. This is sole responsibility of the church clerk or the secretariat department. And we are audited every year, and we are requested to submit information on a regular basis. Again, we will talk about that as we go through the training. One of the other things that probably some of you already do is that you need to keep a record of the list of committees. The church boards and the business meeting are not the only 2 committees that the church has, depending on your size. And you as a church clerk, you should be able to know which committees have been formed in your local church, who takes who has a role, who is the chair. All these things are important. And again, we will cover this as we go through the training today. All right, I finished section 1, and I don't know if there are any questions at this point. I know probably there's a lot to go on, and with your permission, I will go to section 2, and we'll probably get some questions after section 2 because this will cover a bit more in detail what we have started and covered in section 1. Right, so let's just once again remind ourselves, why is it so important to take the responsibility of church clerk to heart and to give our best to it? I'm just going to read this for you, although you have it on your screen. The clerk of the church has one of the most important church offices upon which the proper administration and efficient functioning of the church depends. Few realize how much depends on the proper administration of this office. Again, I wanted to re-emphasize how critical it is for us to know what we are responsible for and the way we need to handle ourselves going forward as we have committed to serve in 2024 and probably in 2025. So here is one of the job descriptions. I mean, depends where you look. Obviously, you may see other definitions as well, but this is the definition that I would like to use with you today. If there was a job description, this will summarize it. The church clerk is the official church historian and keeper of the records. I'm going to stop there for a second. What does it mean to be a church historian? I thought all I have to do is just count how many members we have in church. Well, you will see in just in part of this training that part of our responsibility is to also uphold the historical record of the church. We have milestones that happen time and time again, and it is our responsibility to make sure that those records are being kept saved and they have been recorded for the posterity, because we may think, oh, I remember who was baptized 2 Sabbaths ago, but in 10 years from now, when we have a new pastor, a new church clerk, probably new elders, we wouldn't know, and these things have to be there. These records should be carefully preserved. The expiration of the term of office, they are to be passed to the newly elected clerk. All records and account books of the various church officers are the property of the church. Just like myself here working for the North England Conference, anything that I produce, including this presentation, is not my property, but it is the property of the North England Conference. And it is the expectation that when we hand over to somebody else, all these records of all that we've done will be passed on to them so they can continue the work and build on and do the same when the time comes for them to leave the office. All records and accounts books of the various churches' offices are the property of the church. I think we've read that already. As such, they are to be surrendered at the expiration of the term of office or at any time during the term at the request of the church. So from time to time, and we will cover this particularly when it comes to the business meeting, members would like to have the minutes of the business meeting, and we should be ready to have a record of this information according to what they need. So here is there's many other things, but I thought, let me not scare us. These are 6 main duties of the church clerk. First one is maintain accurate records of church membership. So what do we mean by that? Obviously, next week we will show you in a bit more details what is the system, the official system that we use But no matter what you use, ACMS, so if you still use a paper format, we need to make sure that all the members have their up-to-date details, phone numbers, emails in particular. When we talk about ACMS, you will see why is it so crucial that we have the correct email address. Yeah, so maintain accurate records of the church, not just membership, I would say, but even those who visit the church, who are interests, and who the church would be able to approach and minister to whenever we have evangelistic initiatives. Number 2, keep minutes for church board and church business meetings. Again, this is a crucial responsibility, particularly because these are legal documents. If anything was to happen and your local church was asked to present documents in court, your church board minutes would be requested. We will cover that in a bit more detail. I also have a bit of a sample that you could use, but yes, there's certain criteria that need to be fulfilled when we come to church minutes and board minutes. Therefore, it is the responsibility of your office to make sure that these minutes are accurately kept. Number 3, keep records of events for church history. I think we mentioned this earlier on. So you have a special Sabbath. It could be a baby dedication. It could be a funeral. It could be a wedding. It could be a church rededication service. Anything that springs to mind. It may be that you've had a refurbishing project. You build an extension to the church. All these things really should be kept part of the history of the church, but one day they will come in handy. Maintain the church records on ACMS. I hope I'm not offending anybody, but it is really necessary that all church clerks embrace and learn how to use ACMS. ACMS has been adopted by the church here in United Kingdom since 2017, and it's now being used across the world in all but one continent where we have Seventh-day Adventists, and that is United States. The only reason they don't use it at the moment is because their financial systems are intertwined with their old membership system, so it is very difficult for them. But from what we understand from those representing the General Conference, ACMS it's a matter of time until all the churches, all the divisions across the world would be using ACMS. So it's important to not just have an accurate record, but for that record to be updated on ACMS. And once we do so, when we look at transfers, you will see how easy or how simplified it becomes from the old system which we used to use with papers and letters or even emails. Number 5, supply statistical information as requested. From time to time, there are things that are standard, and we're going to talk about those as well. For instance, the 2nd and the 7th Sabbath, you need to produce information to the conference so we can pass it on to the union and division. The General Conference collects this information for their statistics. Or from time to time, for instance, at the beginning of the year, we kindly ask you to upload either on ACMS or send us a list of the new church officers. So these are information that will be requested, and again, it is the responsibility of your office. Number 6 in this presentation is handle transfers of membership into and out of the local church. Again, I think this links with what we mentioned already, but there is a process to this, and we're going to spend quite a long time today in understanding what this process is, what our role plays in it. Yeah, we're not going to spend too much time on this now. I'm going to pause here just for a second because I think it's important for you now to have a chance to ask any questions on the first two sections of this presentation. If you do have questions, hopefully, if you know how to use Zoom, just raise your hand, and then I will invite you to speak. Okay. All right. Rona, I believe. Yes.
My apologies. I went in late because I went on the wrong meeting.
That's
I
okay.
went on a wrong passcode. Apologies. Just a quick query. Would we be able to have a training for ACMS today, or just to
Okay.
inquire about that? That's
Yes.
all. Thank you.
Okay. No problem, Rona. We mentioned at the beginning, just before we started the recording, that the ACMS training is a dedicated training which will happen next week. So we're going to spend up to 3 hours today talking about the general responsibilities of the church clerks. And then next week, we'll have a dedicated session just for ACMS and 7Me. All right. We have one more question from Shanair, please.
Hi again, Pastor. My question was just that, regarding submitting like statistical information, because I know one requested like at the end of 2023, and because we're using the ACMS platform, shouldn't that data be able to be captured from ACMS as long as everyone's inputted that data beforehand, rather than us having to submit a quarterly report?
Okay, the quarterly reports. I'm just trying to think. So, which report are you referring to specifically?
Oh, it was just that there was a report that needed to be submitted before the 4th of January. That was a quarterly report. It was for GC, but I was just thinking, if we're using the ACMS system, shouldn't that information be can be captured from that without us having to submit another report at the end of the year?
Okay, all right. I think it's a good question. I'm going to bring in Yvonne, Sister Yvonne Weeks, who serves as secretary for the Secretariat Department. Sister Yvonne, I don't know if you've heard the question.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, I have.
Please go ahead.
The end of year report for the GC was to encourage, because from about September, we've asked all the pastors and the church clerks to update ACMS. So once you've been updating it, we can call the information for the GC. We had the 8th of January to submit all your reports. And it was just a general reminder to send out to all the church clerks and the pastors to say, please update your information. Because currently we have less than a third reporting each quarter. And as Pastor said, we have 104 churches. So I should be getting full 100% reports, but we're not getting it. That's why we're sending out reminders.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, that makes sense. I did because we were updating it. That's why it didn't.
Yes.
I didn't make
Yeah.
sense to me why
So-
we had to do it again, but it makes sense now. Okay.
Yeah. So another way to answer your question is true. We don't need you to do anything else if you update ACMS. One of the challenges we're currently facing, and it's not just in NEC, but because people are still getting used to ACMS and the requests, you need to use ACMS in order to update the information regularly. And then from the conference office, when we print or when we generate the reports, that the information is there. The problem we have is that when churches don't use ACMS, and that's when we have to, and it looks bad. I mean, we don't want to start on a negative note, but for instance, when we talk about the reporting for the 2nd and the 7th Sabbath, out of 12,000 plus members that we have in the NEC, we only have reported attending on those Sabbaths just over 2,000. And that's not because people don't attend, it's because for one reason or another, these things are not reported. Okay, I'm going to take one more question before we go on to section 3. Janitha.
Yes, Brian. So the ACMS access, I know we are going to have the training next week, but the access, are we going to get it this week so that, you know, we can go in and check the stuffs inside, and then when we come for the meeting next week, you know, we don't have to struggle with the access to go through what's inside the system?
Okay, thank you for the question. It's been our practice, and we haven't really changed that, in that it makes sense in a way to do the training first before we assign the access, simply because, like every one of us, once we get access, we would be inclined to just go in and look around, and unless you know exactly what you need to do, it may make life much harder. So at the moment, the practice is that we first have the training and then we assign the access. But I do take on point what you're saying, and probably some people are confident enough to go in without the training. But I think as a general rule, this is what we try to encourage.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay, Beverly, I see you've raised your hand as well.
Yes, hello everyone.
Hello.
Just a quick one. If you say you're starting, so you've started as a clerk, you recognize that there's lots to be done on the ACMS system, lots of things that have not been updated, the years of members, their birth, deaths, just general information for members.
Yes.
They're just missing. How do you propose we begin? How do we start a full overhaul of process to get everything going? Where do we start? And if you can walk us through that, that would be great.
Okay. Well, I don't have a particular section on how to start from scratch, but the question is good, and I wanted to say that you're not the only one, and sometimes we do have to work extra hard to make sure that we bring things to where they need to be. One of the things that I would suggest is take some time to just assess the situation, like everything else. Just see exactly what needs to be done. It depends on the size of the congregation. I don't know where you are. If you have 25 members or 40 members, it may not be too hard to handle this by yourself. But if you come from a large congregation where you've got hundreds of members, then my suggestion is speak to the pastor, and for the church board, assign someone who can assist you. So you don't take this task by yourself. But yeah, it's just looking at what needs to happen. In order to gather the information, you may need to print some slips, approach people, do a general announcement from the church, just let through the leadership of the church, just announce that we're not doing anything but trying to make a membership audit, just to bring everyone up to speed. You'll always have people who will reply straight away, others you'll have to chase. So yeah, what I think also is, Beverly, once we finish with the presentation today, you will get a sense of what is expected from the church clerks. And then you will be able to somehow implement that within your local church. But yeah, if you don't have a record, if you don't have the names of those that attend church, or the membership is scattered all over the NEC or BUC or even abroad, then that would be a good place to start. Okay, Audrey, Sister Audrey?
Question, Pastor. So if the records are incomplete on ACMS, and we don't know if people are dead or alive, basically, but they're still on the record. Is it my responsibility to find out where they are or what's happened to them? Is that my responsibility?
Yes, it's part of the responsibility of the church clerk, and this is actually covered in the presentation. So stay tuned to that. I'll tell you what is expected in terms of the church clerks when things like this take place.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. All right. If we're okay, let's move on to responsibilities, which is section 3 under the church clerks training. And I have 12 areas here, which again will go in a bit more depth, and take notes in terms of the points you want to ask any questions. So one of the first things that I would like to begin with is that as a church clerk, you need to try your best. It is a requirement in a way to attend administrative meetings. What do I mean by that? Administrative meetings are meetings where official decisions are being taken, particularly church board, church business meeting. This is where you need to be there. If for some reason you are not able to attend, the assistant church clerk, so for larger congregations, it is a very good idea to have someone who can work alongside you or together with you, and they can take your place. Or if, God forbid, you are unwell or you're out of the country, you're not able to attend for whatever reason, then the chair of that committee, the pastor for the church boards and the business meeting, or if an elder has been assigned to chair, will be able to appoint one of the board members to fill in for you. What we're basically saying is that there shouldn't be an administrative meeting taking place without an official document produced from that meeting. In other words, somebody has to take notes. If there's been any votes taken, those votes have to be minuted. There needs to be a record of that. All right, the second is items to take to the meeting. I'm sorry, I don't want to teach you how to suck eggs. I know you are professionals in your own right, but just in case, depends how you'd like to work. I mean, I for one, I hardly use any paper, and I take my laptop with me. So if you have a notebook, a computer, something that you can write your notes on, which is, it's yours, and people cannot interfere with it. Copy of the minutes from the previous meeting. So when you attend the church board meeting or even the business meeting, it is always important to have a copy of what has been discussed previously. We will go over that. Not only that they need to be voted, that they are accurate. In other words, once you take the minutes, you produce the document, people have to agree that this was the decision, or this was the tone of the discussion in terms of what was presented. Ideally, these things need to happen sooner rather than later. For instance, if you have a church board that happens once every 2 months, by the time you come back around to look at the minutes, you don't really know, or you may not remember as well. So it's something that we try our best here at the conference level as well. But if you have a meeting today, try and spend some time over the next few days, produce the minutes, and then you can share them with the board members, those who should receive those minutes for accuracy. They can then let you know if there's any corrections, anything that they feel needs to be adjusted. And by the time you bring those minutes to the next meeting, you have a good document that everyone is happy with, and then it can be signed officially, both by yourself and the local pastor. You also need to bring a current list of the church membership. Why? Sometimes depending on what is to be discussed, or this may come up, members would like to know, is brother so-and-so a member in a local church? You will be surprised, and this is going to happen to the NEC, but over the next couple of months, because the deadline is the 31st of March, each church will have to vote the delegate for the NEC session, which takes place in September. And it happened before, where names have been put forward only to discover that they are not members in the local church. They've been active, they've been faithful, they even preach, and sometimes they even have office in the local church. But when you look at the record, they're not members officially in the local church. And if they're not members in the local church, then they cannot officially represent you as a delegate. So that's why it's so important to have an up-to-date membership list. So if anyone asks, if the pastor puts forward a question, then you can quickly look, and then you can avoid a lot of embarrassment later on. A list of all the church committees and their members. Many times you would find that at the church board level, at least that's how we should be. If there is a decision, for instance, we need to change the carpet. This is an old saga theme, yes. Now that responsibility should not lie solely, or you shouldn't waste more time that is necessary with the church board, but it should be assigned to the building committee. They need to go and have a look at taking quotes. You can give some suggestions in terms of what needs to happen. But yeah, so if you have the committee names, if you know who is responsible, then people can be informed. A list of all the church officers. Again, it goes without saying that those who have assumed responsibility, everybody needs to know. In fact, we have a directory, an internal directory for the conference here we use with all our staff. I would encourage you also, if you can, create a directory. It doesn't have to have very intimate details, but a contact number or an email for all the church officers for your local church. Therefore, if everyone it's new to the position, if they want to call one of the elders, if they want to call one of the deacons, or the Sabbath school teacher, or the music leader, they don't have to go scrambling for numbers. I think this is the professional way. Last but not least, have some paper in case a secret ballot. So in today's age, we use technology to take polls and things like that, but the old-fashioned way is probably still preferred by many people. And yeah, if you have, I don't know if you can see this, some sticky notes, just take something like this with you all the time, just in case at some point there needs to be a secret ballot. In other words, people don't vote by hand, but they will write their decision on the piece of paper, and then it's counted later on. So that's always good to have to hand. And again, I don't know if I should mention this at this level, but sometimes we've seen cases where people bring in paper already signed, already with names on it. So try and bring different color papers, so at least there's no reason for somebody to cheat. All right, I'm going to stop it there because I don't want to go too much into that. All right, one of the other responsibilities is promote administrative meetings. Because you work closely with the pastor, and we're going to look at relationships in the next section. One of the things that you have to make sure is that together with the pastor, you know when those administrative meetings are called, and you should inform officially the members and the church. If you have a good administrative team, you'll be able to have those dates from the beginning of the year. They're predetermined, you know when your board meetings are for the next 12 months. However, if they tend to scatter and be done at ad hoc basis, then one of the ways to do it is you can put it in the bulletin, or you can send a reminder. And I would say that probably this is where WhatsApp comes in handy, or any social media group, just for things like this, to announce that there is a meeting coming up. I would discourage anybody to use WhatsApp for official business. This is not covered in the presentation, so I'm just going to bring it here. Again, we've seen time and time again where obviously it's far easier to just ask the board members, what do you vote? What do you want to do? It's not ideal. Probably it was used because there was no other choice. We couldn't meet. But when people make decisions for the well-being of the church, it is really important that we use the right structure to do it. And social media platforms are not platforms to make those decisions. Number 4, keep an attendance record. This is like going back to school, but notify the pastor or the church boards or the chairman that the quorum has been met. That's why we keep an attendance. And if I was to share with you, I don't want to do it now because it will take away from the presentation, but I have like a sample church board minute. You would be able to see that you have a section with those present and those who have sent their apologies or they're absent. It's good to know. And then the quorum, just in case this question may come up later, the quorum is determined by the business meeting or the members meeting for the church board. So when the church board has been voted through, ideally the next item on the agenda or the next vote should be voting the quorum of the board members. So for instance, if you have 11, it's always good to have an uneven number on the board. You can say the quorum is 6, so it's 50 plus 1. But if the church feels that 6 is not enough, they could change that to 7 or 8 or 9. But it just makes life slightly difficult, I guess, because when you have people who don't attend, then if there's no quorum, you can't take official votes. You can discuss, but you cannot take a vote. Okay, number 5, produce reports on. So this is where we come to talking about the reporting side. Current total membership of the church. And I think this goes well with your responsibility when it comes to church boards. Probably not every time, depending on what the chair of the church board requires. But from time to time, it's good to keep the leadership of the church, the board members, up to date with where we are. So have a membership records shared. And if you use ACMS, it's literally 5 clicks away. You can produce one of those reports. Total members added since the beginning of the year. Again, you can use ACMS for that, but it's good to let people know that since January, this is how many people have joined our church officially. The transfers from another church or baptisms, total persons that have been disfellowshipped, and I know this is an old term. I've changed it in some of the other slides, but removed from membership. In other words, people who are no longer members of our fellowship. Reports of any actions taken on previous discussions of membership and pending matters on membership. So if those things, particularly the last couple of points, if there's been any decisions taken, any actions that need to be followed through, it is a good thing for you as a church clerk to remind people that this is what we decided, and this is the actions that have been followed. All right, hopefully that's clear. If there's any questions on it, we can come back when we have our Q&A. Take official minutes. Okay, every minute it's an official document, as we mentioned before. Therefore, there's a few things that need to be included in it: the time and date of the meeting, the place of the meeting. For instance, a church or on Zoom or at another location. Name of those present and absent. actions voted by board, resolutions passed, adopted, or denied, committees elected, the members and their responsibilities. So if a new committee, a subcommittee has been appointed, then it needs to be clearly stated who is part of that committee, who will chair that committee, and who will they answer to. And any discussions, the relative parts. Now, let me see. I think this will be a good time to just bring this in. So I'm going to, I don't know what this will do to the presentation. We may have to bring it up again. So we're at slide 17. But if I was to share this with you now, okay, you would be able now to see what I mean by a sample of the church board minutes. This can easily be done in Word, as you can see here. It's something that I just put together this morning before our session. You could use Word, so you have the title at the top. You enter the date, the time there, and then this is used. The way we do it is we just use the table, and if you know how to use Word a little bit, you will know that's how it looks like at the beginning. So you have a two-column table with as many rows as necessary, and then you have those who are present, those who are absent. If you have any invitees, obviously they have to be voted in as invitee, and sometimes you have to specify if they have a vote or not, depending on what they're there for. And then you begin with the agenda. Now, one of the things that it's important to recognize is the numbers here. Those numbers are important because at any point you need to discuss an agenda item or refer back to it. This is the numbers. This is your reference point. Now, I think it goes, everyone would probably guess that the first number here is the number of the year. So for us, it would be 24 today. And then the number begins with 01 for your first meeting. And then when you go to the next meeting, you don't start again with 01, but you continue. So that's why I put 32, 33, 34 here. You start with 23 because this is a decision taken or the action taken in year 23, but the item number was 32. Now, one of the other things that I wanted to point out here is that you will notice that it's not because this is just a sample, but ideally, you do not have to spend all the time in the world reflecting, sister so-and-so said this, brother so-and-so said that. This is what the committee did, and this is, it's good to get the sense of where the board is in terms of what was considered, but what is most important is the vote. What was the ultimate decision? So you will see here, and there's two examples. It was approved, £1,000 to be invested into the windows for the Sabbath school room, okay, or here. So yeah, if some of you are quite good at doing minutes, you probably do it in your work environment. And then at the end, what you can do is you can take this off. It looks like this, and then at the bottom you can add signature yourself, because as a church clerk who has drafted the minutes, you have to sign and date. And then the other signature is the chair. Okay, I see there is a question. I'm going to wait until Rona. We're going to wait until we finish this. Just make sure you keep your question, okay? All right, I'm going to have to try and go back now to the presentation. Let's see if I find it. Church officers training. Okay. I think this is the one. All right, so it's just uploading now. Oops. We need to change to the different slide. Apologies for this. Keep attendance records, produce reports on, and then take official minutes. I think this is where we were last time. Yeah. All right. Slide 17. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. We work as a team. All right. Section number 7 under this, and we have 12 in total. So I'm gonna finish this, have some questions, and then we can have a break. Documents. What sort of documents do you think we need to file? So here's some samples with documents and file minutes of the board minutes. People may ask, so how do I store them? We have a system now. The NEC, everything is stored digitally. I think more and more people will begin to use that. But if you're not comfortable with keeping things digitally, then print a copy and save it. That copy, like I said, it needs to be signed. The minutes are not official unless they have been signed. So you need to chase the chair, the pastor, and obviously yourself to do it. If you store it electronically, I would encourage you to have a backup, just in case something happens with the device. So have a memory stick. It's quite cheap these days to invest in something like that. I'm not saying you need to buy it. The local church needs to buy that for you, and it could be something that is part of the handover. If you keep those things together, then when it's time to hand over, it will be easy. Record the acts or resolutions adopted by the board and file the church minutes book in the order in which they were adopted, specifically the date and the times of the meeting. So what we do here, and I think it's good for you as well, at the end of the year, you can put all the board minutes together in one file. And that's why it's so crucial to have the minutes follow through. Remember 23, 33, 23, 34. It will be easier for you to do that. Sign the minutes taken of each meeting records in the minutes book. Okay, yeah, I think the comment there is that you can index them as well. That will be easier if you put it in a folder, a physical folder. Then if the assistant took the minutes, then the assistant should sign. Again, I think this is self-explanatory. Because you have not drafted those minutes, then it is the responsibility of the person who did. Keep the minutes of every business meeting for any requesting member. So sometimes we make decisions like the transfer of members. We have business meeting where we vote the budget. It could be all sorts of things. Those minutes should have, those meetings should have minutes. And if at some point any of the church members would come to you and say, I would like to know what was discussed at the last business meeting, then you should be able to furnish them. They are within their rights to call for this because they are members of the local church. Number 8, file other documents. So from time to time, you will receive letters or sometimes emails. I think it was last night they were talking about the post office trying to reduce their delivery dates. They're thinking not to deliver on a Saturday because less and less people now use post. So this is a way to save more money for them. But yeah, whatever you receive in terms of official communication to the church or to the church board, please file it. It shouldn't stay in your email account. And by the way, on that, ideally, you should create a generic email account, Google or anything else that you use, and that account can be passed on to the next church clerk, so they can have access to the conversation and other data that is important. Number 9, no action without vote. So I'm going to read this for you because it's really important. The clerk, church clerk, should not add or delete any names from the membership list until the action has been approved by a business meeting of the church body. You may know that this is the outcome, but you should not start making changes on ACMS until, in fact, you can't. On ACMS, you need to put in the reference of the minute number of the decision. So you need to make sure that any action that you fulfill has been voted first by the body of the church. Number 10, committees records. Make a list of the committees which are elected, and we covered this before. This list should include the specific purpose or functions of each committee. Give a copy of the list to the chair of that particular committee. You remember we were talking about the building committee. You could have the personal ministry committee. You could have the youth advisory committee. There's a lot of committees that you can have in church, and you should have in church, for it isn't the responsibility of one individual to do everything. But if people have a record of who they are working with, that's good. The pastor should have a copy of all those committees, so he knows who he's working with, and keep a copy in the church files as well, for posterity and for good record keeping. Update church list. Again, we're coming back to one of the main responsibilities of what it means to be a church clerk. Maintain a current list of the church officers. So again, I think we covered this before. I don't know if we need to spend any more time on it, but if anything changes, sometimes the church board functions as a nominating committee throughout the year, and they vote the new person in. That person is to be updated on the system as soon as possible. Maintain a current list of the church membership, which should include up-to-date information on address, phone number, and birthdays. Now, let me plug this in here now. When we're going to talk about ACMS and 7Me next week, 7Me is the app which we will promote right at the end, and we're going to talk about next week. It's a lifesaver in that it will take away, once it's done properly, it will take away from some of the things that you as a church clerk are responsible for right now. So once someone has an account on 7Me, which is a mobile app free of charge on all platforms, they would be able to update their picture, the details. But in order to do so, there is one crucial information that needs to match, and that is the email address. If the email address they have on ACMS doesn't match with the email address they put on the account when they sign into 7Me, the system will actually think they're two different people. And to be honest with you, most of the time it does, because if the birthdays don't match, or if it doesn't find at least, I think it's 3 or 4 matching details, then we will get flagged up at the conference and say, okay, this person says is this, but this, we have a record of this. Can you see if this is true? And then we have to merge the two records. So it's really crucial that on ACMS you have the email address, the personal email address which they would like to use for the membership database. And birthdays, I know sometimes folks are quite particular about sharing, but it happens. Probably not so much here, but we have churches in the world where we have members in the same church, same congregation with exactly the same names. And unless we have another way to distinguish who they are, it may be a son and the father who share the same name. Okay, record the member's death, including the dates. So we will talk about that in terms of what you should do when, unfortunately, something like this happens. But every year, our beloved brothers and sisters go to rest, and we need to keep an accurate record of that as well. And last but not least, before you come to the questions, is the membership record. We mentioned earlier that the General Conference would like, so this has got nothing to do with how many members we have in church, the second and the seventh Sabbath count is how many heads we count in church. So yourself, or you can ask one of the deacons or one of your friends to, for Sabbath school, just count how many people, how many heads you see in church. And that's the number you need to put in. And then it's the same for the seventh Sabbath. Why the second and the seventh Sabbath? It was at their discretion, but the idea is that everyone counts the same at the same time. And ideally, what this should show is that, okay, if for a particular church, let's say you have 50 members on the books, but then you count on those Sabbaths 70, then that means you have 20 regular visitors who attend your church. Or you could go the other way around. You have 50, but then you have only 30 people attending, which means that 20 on a regular Sabbath go somewhere else, or we don't know about. Notify the pastor of membership transfers requests. You will be the receiving end through ACMS. So if someone makes a request, again, if I can just plug this in as well, through 7Me app, a member would be able to request a membership transfer. So it bypasses, it excludes they contacting you, you having to contact the local church where his membership or her membership is. So that's why it's really good to encourage people to use the new features we have on the app. But the pastor has to be informed. Inform the pastoral team of the contacts that have been discouraged and members who stop attending church, basically. It would be nice if you have the time, or together with the PM department, to write them, just reach out and let them know that we're still thinking of them. But the pastoral team has to be aware. Contact local church members who have moved away. You would know if there is an accurate list of who is missing and who's not. And we will cover in another section what is the responsibility of people when they leave a local church for some time, what they need to do. But I'm going to stop there before we go to this fourth section. We're going to have some questions on the third section, and then we will have a break. So if you have any, I think there was a question earlier on. I'm trying to see. Yes, Rona, I think you had a question. You put your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I just needed some clarity, please, about the item on the minutes, where I think my understanding is that the first two numbers is the year, and then the next dash numbers is when the meeting, the item that needs actioning is that it goes from a 0 to, like,
Yes.
further up. So was I right with the other number, that the 23
Yes.
is actually the year?
Yes. So
Right,
the
okay.
first number is the calendar year in which
Right,
you are recording. The second
Okay.
number always restarts at 01 on the first meeting of the year. So
Right.
and then you will go with that until December. And then
Okay.
when you change years, obviously you change the calendar year, but you go to 01.
Okay, because that I was gonna ask a follow-up question on that, because I thought, what happens if the previous year is a different numbering? But now
Yes.
you've clarified that by saying because of the calendar year, the
Yes.
0, 0, and
Yes.
01 will start on the calendar year. Okay,
Yes.
lovely. Thank you for the clarity. Thank
No
you.
problem, my pleasure. Okay, we have Felicity.
Yes,
Hi.
hi there. Just a quick question. Who would you say makes up the pastoral team, for the contacting with about non-attending members and that?
So usually the pastoral team are the pastors,
Mm-hmm.
the pastor, the Bible worker, in some cases, and the elders. I would submit that even yourself as a church clerk, in light of what the responsibilities are, I think you are part of the pastoral team. But generally speaking, it could be extended. It's down to the local leadership. But for sure, the pastor and the elders, the pastoral team.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. If you finish with your question, if you don't mind putting your hand down, if there's any other questions. Okay, I think we have 2 more questions, yes. Just in the order that I see them here, I don't know if when you put it, Audrey?
Yes, Pastor. On the minutes, you said something about, you just say that the treasurer's report is accepted as accurate or something like that.
Hmm.
But is that a written, so for example, the balance and things like that and what's paid out, is the treasurer expected to come with that and then have a record, so I don't need to record that information?
Sure. Very good question, and thank you for bringing it up. So a lot of church clerks I've seen take note of the major points, so in terms of the balance. But what it would be ideal in all cases is for an attachment to be put to the church board minutes. So when the treasurer, the local treasurer, presents his or her report, ideally that should be in writing. And then you can attach that to, so when you vote the treasurer's report, you could probably say balance at the end of the month was this. For more details, please see Appendix A, B, C. That's what we try to do here as well. It will be impossible, particularly when it comes to financial matters, to record every single thing. My guess is that the treasurer's training today, that's what they are being encouraged to do as well. The reports, as much as possible, should be in written format, not just verbal.
Okay. And just one other quick question, Pastor. What about actions? I didn't see that on your template. Actions taken. We don't need to do that. Is that the vote?
Okay, so
no, sorry, not action. Sorry, I beg your pardon. The responsibility. Who is responsible for doing the actions?
Yeah. So you could create. We have had this with the North England Conference Executive Committee. We have another column, not the row, another column added in with the initials of the person who's being responsible for doing something. I didn't want to overcomplicate things for you, but if you're happy to do so, yes, if a vote has been taken and a person has been instructed to do something, then you could have that in as well. Or sometimes what I've seen done is people keep a separate action log, like a spreadsheet. But I didn't want to bring all these things up because there's already a lot of information that the church clerks present here today would have been overwhelmed with. So yeah, very good idea. And thank you for bringing that up.
One last quick thing, Pastor. Did you say that we have to send the draft minutes to the members as well? Because mine just goes to the pastor, but none of my minutes are signed because they're electronic. Okay.
So I mean, yeah, we can sign electronic documents. You may have to, I mean, here at the union, we use Adobe. Once it's set up, you have a signature. But for instance, all executive committee minutes for the North England Conference, they're signed by myself and Pastor Kumi, who is the chair as president of the North England Conference. Now, we share the minutes with all the board members. And the rationale for that is this. If some members feel that what was voted or what was recorded is not accurate, then we need to preamble this, not make a big thing and wait for 2-3 months until we have another board meeting. As church board members, there's no secret for what was decided. Therefore, ideally, I mean, again, I'm not trying to teach you how to do things, but if you have the email addresses, then you can easily share that with them and ask them if you have any corrections. Then please get back to me by this date, and then, like I said, when we come to the actual next board meeting where the minutes should be drafted in the final draft, it should be just a matter of all in favor, we accept the minutes as they are, And then after that point, after it's been voted, then yourself and the pastor should sign them. If you don't sign them, then nobody takes ownership of the accuracy of the minutes. So anybody can go back and say, well, who's to say that I can't, if I know the format, I can draft my own minutes and say whatever I want. So, yeah. I don't know if that helped. I see a couple more hands. Sislin. And then we have Erling.
Hi, Pastor. You mentioned that members can have copies of the minutes, okay, if they...
Church board members.
Not church board members.
Yes. Church board members should have
church.
copies of the minutes.
Say that again.
Sorry, I should let you finish what you're saying, but just to clarify, so I was referring to
members of the church, not the church board.
For the business meeting.
For business meeting, okay, but not the board meeting.
No.
Not the board meeting. I mean, these are public documents, so if people do want, there shouldn't be anything that we want to hide. But the comment that I made was specific to the business meeting.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. So it's the business meeting, not the board meeting. Yes,
but remember, the church board is appointed by the members, meeting. So they are answerable to the members. So if a member wanted to see a copy of the minutes, they are within their rights to do so.
Okay. So it's both. They can if they wanted to. Okay.
Yes.
But if there were like sensitive information of that, was it be just what they wanted to see, or could we not?
Oh, okay. I mean, in these days you have subject access request. If people wanted to see what the church holds information on them, then they could do that. Every citizen in UK is entitled to do that. It's called SAR. So in terms of sensitive information, I mean, it's down to how you draft those minutes. And remember what I was saying earlier. The idea is not, you're not going to say, and brother so and so spoke against this appointment and made this. You shouldn't include this in the minutes. It should be an overall representation of what was discussed, the reason for the vote, and what was the outcome.
Okay. All right then. Thanks ever so much.
Our pleasure. Okay. I think, okay, Erlene and then Joy.
Yes, hello. I wanted to ask how soon after the meetings, for example, a board meeting, should minutes be ready to disseminate amongst the members for them to check?
Yes, the church manual doesn't say specifically, but from experience, the sooner the better. Simply because people get to remember things when they're fresh in their mind. So at the conference, we try our best to do it within the first week, and then we send it out to the members. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was covered in any of the presentation or further down, but generally speaking, church clerks, if they were to do what we've just mentioned so far, will have to spend about 1 to 2 hours per week. So this is the time that you will volunteer as your ministry to the church. So after a church board meeting, you would start to look at drafting those minutes, sending them out, asking for corrections, and then, yeah.
Yes, just one additional clarification. So you something that you brought up about having the minutes signed. So can you just clarify this? You said if the minutes are not signed, they're not valid. Is that what you're saying?
According to, sorry, go ahead. No, please.
Say for example, you know, the business meeting voted to spend X amount on the building, and those minutes were not signed, and they were looked at later on. Are you saying that those would not be valid if they were not signed?
Yes, I mean, I don't live under a rock. I know that most of the churches will not even have this implemented, but I think what we're trying to say is that we need to change this, because since this is an official document, then signatures have to be on it, and just by logical process, if you're not signing it, then who's to say that it's accurate? Who's to say that due diligence has been made, and either yourself as a church clerk or the pastor hasn't amended those minutes to say what they want to say? So all this is part of our accountability to each other and to the church. So I know it's an extra step, but once it's done, it's done. People can't go back on it and say, well, I'm sorry. If you give people time to make amendments and they don't do it, that's their responsibility. But to just write what we want and then keep it there, thinking that it's fine, it will give us more headache later on, I would suggest.
Just last one, thank you, Pastor. So what if we have a business meeting or a vote in church and there's no record at all, there's no minutes? I'm talking about validity. I'm talking about validity now.
According to what I've just mentioned, there should be. So was there a church clerk present at that meeting? And if they were, the question is why haven't they taken the minutes? If they weren't, then the chair should appoint somebody to take the minutes. And if no minutes have been done, as you were alluding, then I don't know. I mean, some minutes have to be drafted, and everyone has to make the consensus that this is the decision that was made. But yeah,
because if we come back to it, so if we come back to it and we say, you know, we voted £1,000, and we all the majority voted £1,000, and there's no record of it, it's not valid, is it? Or
I mean, the majority of the members will probably not have any issue with it because they know they voted for it, so they won't ask any questions. But in 5 years, if someone was to look at it and say, why did we spend £1,000 on it? When this should have been done this way or that way. If you have the minutes, then you can answer that question straightforward.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, again, this is why it's so crucial for church clerks, and you can see. I was starting by saying that the church is the body of Christ, is what God has instituted, and we may think that what the pastors, the elders, everyone is important, but if we as church clerks don't take our job and don't do our job as best as we can, and don't fulfill those responsibilities, then it will affect the church in a big way. All right, I think we have Joy and Shanair, and we'll probably leave to those two and then take a break because it's been over an hour now since we've. Okay, so Joy.
Thank you, Pastor Brand. This is just a obscure question, I think. During board meetings, and if the board acts as a nominating committee as well.
Committee, yes.
And if we are wanting to, well, if a name has been brought forward for discussion on nomination, if that person is on the board and we've asked that person to leave the room, now family, of course, also have to leave the room. Now, if that person is family by marriage to either that person or the spouse, would they have to leave also?
Okay, so this is it's good for you to know, but it's a topic that normally the chairs have to be up to date with it. So we're talking about conflicts of interest now. It's not just when it comes to nomination, but if an item is put on the agenda, and when the agenda is voted or when it comes up, every responsible member should be able to put their hand up and say, I have a conflict of interest. Why? Because I am related to this person, or I work for this person, or in any way that the decision it's taken and may affect in a way you may vote, that needs to be made public. So obviously, when we talk about people, about nominations, they have to vacate the room. So we feel comfortable to bring this up. But if there's anybody who is related normally to them, then also the chair should ask them to vacate the room, so it doesn't infringe on the freedom of speech of those within the board.
So should that include whether the person is related via marriage and related via marriage to the spouse of that person as well? Is that included as well?
So again, these things are not so minutely defined within the church policy, but it's basically allowed to be common sense. So if I share the same home, or if I'm closely related to that person, and people may feel that they cannot speak freely because, for some reason or another, this will get back to the person and things like that, then the chair should really make that clear. But the members who are part of that committee should save face for everybody and say, I have a conflict of interest. Declare that conflict, and if the committee decides that you actually need to leave the room, then they should leave the room. But there's some cases where that once they declare the conflict of interest, there's nothing for them to do afterwards. At least they've been upfront with a possible conflict of interest. But like I said, the chair of the board, the pastor, or those who have been appointed to serve, should be able to deal with this. But if you notice something like this, then you can. That's why it's good for church clerks to sit as close as possible to the chair, because you could whisper and you could make them aware that this may be something. We need to help each other, and
Okay.
I hope that helps, Joy. And it's like I said, there isn't a prescriptive thing, but people need to use their common sense.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Shanair, I think, will be the last question for this section.
Morning again, Pastor. I do have a couple of questions, but the first one I just wanted to highlight. I'm not sure if you might cover it later on in the section regarding missing members, but I will. Okay, because the question was just asking about how would you advise on updating the church membership list if a member who's on our list but they don't attend? And I'm guessing
I'm going to cover that in one of the next sections. I can't remember which one it is, but definitely will be covered today.
Okay, and would that also be covered in regards to a person who's on our membership list, but if they're contacted about updating their membership, whether it's to where they currently are or send it back to conference, and they don't want it to be removed, they want to stay at our particular church, would that also be covered?
Not specifically, but now that you brought it up, I'm going to bring this up when we open that topic, and then we will hopefully you will be able to get an answer then. Is that okay?
Yes, that would be great.
If I don't, please remind me to do it after we cover that in this section.
Okay, thank you, Pastor. And in terms of additional questions, I want to ask a question regarding the minutes, because sometimes in the past, there have been some members who asked for the minutes to document a little bit more in terms of the discussion that happened within the board meeting. And how would you advise on that? Is it best to just say to them that, no, we're just going to keep it as straightforward as possible by just minuting the vote and the action that's made rather than the actual discussion? Because I know some members are liking to ask, well, I mentioned this in the board meeting, but it's not added to the minutes. How would you advise on responding to that?
I think you always have to work with the members or those who are part of the board. Education is key here. If you keep fighting and saying, no, this is the right way, I don't take on board your advice, you're going to have people who are disgruntled and who will always pick a fight just because they believe that this is the best way to do it. So generally speaking, minutes are not there. This is not a tribunal case. We don't record every single thing that has been said. This is a record. Sorry, this is a record of the actions that were taken, yeah, that's how it needs to be. But if some people feel that there needs to be some more information, personally, what I would do is I would speak to them on a one-to-one and just see exactly what do they mean by that. And sometimes just to show them what it is, you can ask them to help you out with taking notes. See how easy it is to actually record everything they want to say. And they will soon discover that it's actually impossible to record everything. But yeah. If somebody has another answer to this, feel free to do so. I don't have all the answers, but that's what I would do anyway.
Okay, thank you for that, Pastor. And I was gonna ask as well, you know, when you mentioned about the corrections, I thought corrections should only be highlighted in the next board meeting regarding the previous minutes, not because you mentioned about sending them personally to ask if there was any corrections to be made.
Yeah, it doesn't matter when the corrections are done. I think we've grown accustomed, and we think this is the norm, that we do corrections at the next board meeting. But once the minutes have been formed, the corrections can happen. And ideally, what should take place is when we come to the next board meeting, all those corrections are already discussed between the person who's raised it, the church clerk, if the pastor needs to get involved, and then you have a final draft. It takes less, I mean, let's be honest, I've sat on a lot of church boards. Sometimes we spend more time in making corrections to what we discussed last time around than on important matters that are on the agenda. So if we do our due diligence and we come and we say, okay, there's been no other corrections, everyone has shared their concerns, we just voted through, and we're there to concentrate on the matters at hand. So to answer your question, there's nothing wrong with contacting. In fact, if you share the minutes in the week after the board meeting and you ask them to give you feedback if there's any corrections or any spelling mistakes or anything like that, then you know, in a couple of weeks you should have a final draft of an agenda. Everyone knows what was discussed, and then you're all ready when you have the next meeting, the next committee.
Okay, no, that's really good. Actually, that makes a lot more sense, I think, and also saves time as well, thinking about it.
I think so.
I had another one regarding when you mentioned about that when members can request, you know, seeing the board meeting minutes from if they request it. How would you handle it if there were a GDPR sensitive information that was discussed within the board meeting, and now a member is requesting that? Would it also have to be blocked out to then when that to be sent to the member if they're requesting to see the minutes?
Okay. I mean, I think I know exactly what you're saying, and I think I tried to answer this last time when it was asked, in terms of in the minutes we shouldn't have things, but sometimes you're right. Sometimes there may be information there that may be sensitive. So, for instance, what we do when we have subject access request, I'm not saying that the member has put a SAR, subject access request. Sometimes we can redact those minutes. So any sensitive information that we think the person should not be privy to, it doesn't involve them, then you can redact it. But yeah, I mean, I think it's really the reason I'm so skeptical about giving an answer is because it really depends on what the situation is. I think there needs to be a lot of transparency within the church for people to trust that those in leadership are doing the right work. So if we don't encourage that by implementing right principles, then I think we can go into bigger problems. Faith, I don't know if you wanted to make a suggestion to this or was there another question? If anyone wants to share what they think should happen.
Yeah, I think it's just a suggestion because from what you outlined earlier and the sample that you showed of the minutes, it didn't have anybody's names or anything. So we're putting in there an action. The names would probably be the people that were present and those that gave apologies. But in the actual minutes, it only says, right, this is the following action that was made. And there's no mention to a name. So in that instance,
Yes, I mean, again, I without taking any more time, not that I'm going to show you how the Nottingham Conference Executive Committee minutes look like, but in them there is a bit more meat. This is a skeleton that I've showed you. You do get to have a little bit more information in terms of, okay, this was discussed. This is the whereas these things have been considered, then the vote and the action. So sometimes names can be mentioned in there, but there shouldn't be something so sensitive, to say that it cannot be. Anyway, I would need to know exactly what the circumstances are to be able to give a general advice.
But I guess from what you're saying regarding what's being discussed in the meeting themselves, there shouldn't be anything that's, say, minuted that is sensitive in the sense that you can't share it to the the wider members, because I guess whatever's being shared should, because we're all part of the church as well, the board members, effectively.
Yeah. Yes.
The only last thing I was gonna ask about, actually, just before I finish, this is the last point. It was regarding the security of the 7Me app, because I know you mentioned that it's linked via email addresses in terms of the member details. And what would be a preventative method that any other member could create an account that, if they know someone else's email, to basically gain access to that information?
So once you, let's say you were to create an email address and sign in as the individual, the details you will have there is mostly the details that you put in. At the moment, what we hold is names, addresses, email addresses. But are you saying that people will be able to get access to your email address? Sorry, to your home address?
No, I was just saying, is it just binded via an email address, or is there also like authentication that goes on to that as well, that make sure that you can verify that you're the sole owner of an email address? Because if there's not, so I was asking if there's like that kind of security layer built on top of the application.
Yeah, so we've had this before where husband and wife use the same email address. Unfortunately, only one of them can have that link with their account. You cannot have two people use the same email address to log in for two accounts. So yeah, it's to be honest, I think it's like every other account you get these days when you sign up to pay your bill with BT or EE or even Sainsbury's. If you have a Nectar point with them, you put your email address there, and yeah. Okay, right. I see we've got 3 more hands. Is this related to this section? Or do you want us to have a break and then come back, or them now?
I was just going to say, Pastor, in terms of that confidential sensitivity, what an example, for example, is if somebody's been awarded some money through the benevolent fund, and so what could be then put is just the person's initials, a particular sum into a particular person, certain initials, and then that would make it a lot more confidential. So certain things, yes, when you minute them, you just have to do it in such a way that it's not so obvious.
Very good suggestion. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, what I was going to say, how we do it. Number one, we don't put full names; we put initials only. And then if we've had a request for someone to see what's been said about them on the board, we only give them that particular part of the minutes and the action only. We don't give them the whole set of minutes.
Okay. Okay. And what happens if they request for the full set of minutes?
Well, if they request for the full set, then that's fine, that they can have it. But if there's anything that's sensitive,
No, I understand. Yeah.
then that gets removed.
Makes
and,
sense.
And then explained why it's been removed as well.
Yeah. Okay. It seems like there's a lot of wisdom in the room. You know what needs to happen. Okay. Have I missed anybody in terms of questions? No, I think we covered everyone. So, sorry.
Yes, I was going to say, with regard to the signing of the minutes, I was wondering whether at the next board meeting, when you have the vote to confirm the accuracy of it, whether that is also in a way of confirming that accuracy and that it's not just being written by you at the top of your head. I agree that signature is an added bonus, but I was wondering whether that is sufficient to have that documented.
Yes. So one of the ways that you could do this, again, it's up to you, but if it's a paper trail, then you could print the final draft. And then once it's voted, you could pass that to the pastor. The pastor will sign it in front of the church board. You sign it as well, and then it's done. But if you only keep an electronic record, then that obviously needs to be done through programs like Adobe, where the signature is digitally embedded within the document. So people cannot just take it out and do whatever they want with it. So yeah, bring it to the meeting. If there's a hard copy, it's signed, and then you don't have to chase the pastor afterwards. Good point. All right, let's take a break. I'm going to stop the recording here and then resume. Is it fair to say we come back at 5 to 12, 7 minutes? I know it's no long break, but we want to finish by 1 o'clock the latest. Okay, so we'll see you in 7 minutes. God bless you. Well, welcome back to our training. This is Nottingham Conference Church training, particularly the church clerks. And we are at section 4, which talks about relationships. We've got 3 more sections, not as long as the ones we've just had, but I think they will do good to us as well. So one of the first things that you will discover is that being a volunteer in the church, you will brush against some people more than others, but there is fundamentally there is a need for a special request, a special relationship that you will have, and that is with the pastor. You will work closely together with the pastor that has been assigned by the conference to make sure that the records are kept accurately. You should not fight with one another. You should complement. If the pastor's missed some information, you should help him or her. And in the same way, he should invest and take you on board in the decisions that have been made in the way he or she believes the meeting needs to be run. You will work together on the agendas. I don't know, some pastors prefer to give this to the church clerks. So you will draft the agenda. In that, you will put it together on the particular document after the pastor. Normally, what happens or what should happen is the pastor, together with the elders, would look at the board meeting agenda before the meeting, if there's any changes to be made to it. Yeah, you will work with the pastor. I think I don't want to go too much into the nitty-gritty, but emphasize more on the level of relationship and the accountability that needs to exist between the pastor and the church clerk and vice versa. The church clerk is responsible for all these things, but first, we are loyal to God, who is the head of the church. As church clerks, then we obviously relate to the pastors and the church board at large. Your task is to make your pastor look good, fill up and encourage your pastor. Sorry, lift up and encourage your pastor. Furthermore, as a member, we are all encouraged to pray for our spiritual leaders. Therefore, this is the call. I did notice the hand. Janitha, if you don't mind holding your question, this won't be a long session, so we will have your question then.
So that was an old hand.
Okay, no problem. Something else that just part of this topic here, when as you communicate with the pastor from time to time, you will be privy to confidential information. I think it kind of came up even in the last section. When it comes to being part of the board, there will be sensitive information. I would suggest to you that even more so as a church clerk, you will be privy to this. The main thing that I want you to take from this is that it is really important to keep your confidence, be confidential. The last thing you want is for things to go out to the rumor mill, and before a decision is made or before it's brought to the church board, or things that don't even have to be coming to the church board, but it may be personal information which should really stay where it needs to be. The fact that you are exposed to such sensitive information doesn't give you a license to share it with your friends, your family members, or those that you think should have this information. Anything like this, if you're not sure, then you should speak to the leadership of the church, and not share unless you have been asked to do so. There is a second level of relationship, and that is between yourself and the church members. I mean, it goes without saying, you should know every single person who comes to church. You are the first face that members would relate to on a more personal level, because you will ask information from them, and the level of trust that needs to be between you and them, it's fundamental. I would not walk into Sainsbury's or Asda or Tesco and just give my details to anybody. I would like to do that in the, within some realm of privacy. So make sure that you make people feel comfortable, and engage with them in all times and forms, so at least you are able to get the support from them when you reach out. You are the liaison between the church and the pastor. Sometimes things will be brought to you, and you can take to the pastor. That's the relationship between you and the members. Now, there is a third level of relationship, and that is between you and the office here at the North England Conference. We will not be able to do our work here if you don't fulfill your part at the local level. For that, we are forever grateful. We know each and every one of you give so much of your time. And as we mentioned, it's your ministry that you give to God. And I think probably it would go the other way around, that the conference here office, my department at the moment, it's only myself and Sister Yvonne, who's also sharing the secretariat with another two departments. But we're doing the best we can to support you. So if you have any queries, we do receive your emails. We try to get back to you as soon as possible, and sometimes we're not perfect. We are striving to improve, but bear with us. And if both parties do the best they can, I think we would be able to accomplish so much more going forward. Right, that's relationships. Section 4, I told you it was going to be a short section. I don't know if there's any general questions on the basis of relationships. If there are, I'll be happy to entertain them now. If not, we can probably go forward to section 5. All right. I think this next section will probably get more questions. So we're going to talk about baptism, profession of faith, and rebaptism. This is the three ways in which an individual can officially become a member of the local church. Now, let me read this statement for you here. Whenever a new member is baptized into the Adventist Church, we considered him or her as family. As such, membership in the church is considered as a family unit. This also applies to rebaptism, transfers in and out of the church, and profession of faith. So we rejoice whenever we have requests like this. We will deal with this before we go to transfers out or things that have been brought out in questions earlier on. So baptisms / professions of faith. When a person is baptized, the certificate of baptism must be signed by the pastor and the church clerk. So easy to remember, just like the church board minutes, you should sign this. If you need baptismal certificates, contact the conference. We would be able to supply those for you. It is from Sister Yvonne Chambers, who is the ministerial secretary as well as the secretary for the president. Make careful notes of how many of the family members are baptized and which are not, with names, addresses, phone numbers, and dates of birth. Now, I don't know if this is something that we currently practice, but in a way, very discreetly, it makes sense. Why? Because if someone has already made their commitment to serve the Lord and give their life publicly to him, then the rest of the family members would need support and a witness from the church as they make this new step. So remember, as they become part of our spiritual family, they are already part of their biological family, and it's good to keep them in mind, in contact, and give them the support that is necessary. If you are not entering directly into the ACMS, fill out a conference baptismal form with the names of new members entering the church by baptism, profession of faith, and indicate the date on which they were accepted into the church. I think when you do the handover with your predecessor, if you haven't served as a church clerk before, this should be part of something that they will hand over to you. But if not, Sister Yvonne or myself would be able to give you the template. It's just an A4 sheet with slips that you can fill in the information. But you can do that on the day. Ultimately, what we want is for you to really fill this in on ACMS, and that will be covered more next week as we look at the program. Make a copy of the form for the pastor unless both use ACMS. So the pastors are given access to ACMS. We do our best to train them. We want to move away from this extra work because the information is already uploaded there. Keep a copy of your own records unless you use ACMS. Give to each newly baptized member a church directory and a calendar of events for your church. So depends. Some churches you walk in and on the foyer they have a notice board and they have pictures of the current serving officers, faces that they can recognize easy. And the sky's the limit, I guess, as long as people give you their permission. What details you can share about them, feel free to do so. Now, rebaptism. Sometimes we have rebaptisms, and this is one way that people join the church. Rebaptism should be reported to the conference office or entered directly online. If the person being rebaptized is a member of the church, report them to the conference or update their ACMS account accordingly. So when we look at ACMS, we can go over this in a bit more detail, but the actual record doesn't have to be deleted. We just update it there, and you will be able to see how that works. If the person being rebaptized is not a member of your church, but is a member to another SDA church, and we've had this many times, you will report them to the pastor and conference as rebaptism, but process them as a transfer into your church. So because they already have a membership somewhere else, but they are giving their life or recommitting their life to the church in your local church, and they want to be a member there, then this is their request, basically, to say, I would like to be a member here. I'm recommitting my life. You don't want to start a new record because one already exists for this individual, and we don't want to have duplication. A disfellowship member or member who has been removed from membership upon rebaptism needs to be recorded on ACMS and reported to the conference as a baptism. So once a person has left the church, has been removed from membership for whatever reason, when they join in again, that is a new baptism. It's a new record. Okay, sometimes you have profession of faith. Again, all these things are from the church manual, and let me just say this here. Sister Yvonne has taken as many of your names that you have attended today. Some of you only have a phone number or initials. So obviously we don't know which church you represent. Please email her. Right at the end, you will have both our email addresses, and let her know. But we want to share with you the resources. This slideshow, hopefully, I don't know how soon the YouTube link will be available, but that can be shared with you as well, and any other resources that we have. So if you give us your contact details, for those that don't have attended here, but we could not get the name, we will do so. So profession of faith is any individual who has been previously baptized by immersion, in other words, has been dipped into the water, not christened, yes, and whether they have been baptized originally in the Seventh-day Adventist Church or in any other church or Christian denomination that practices baptism by immersion. So once you've been baptized once, remember what Jesus said to Peter, if you've been bathed once, you only need to wash your feet. Therefore, they can now profess to accept and uphold the truth of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and they don't have to enter the baptismal waters. If people request, if they've been baptized once, but they lived a life of promiscuity or in sin, obviously that's something else. They should be rebaptized. But if they request to be rebaptized, that's fine. But obviously the pastor would be doing, and the leadership team, the pastoral team will be doing the groundwork on this. But it's important for you to understand what are the free ways in which an individual can join the membership. And we looked at baptism, rebaptism, and this is profession of faith. There are 4 circumstances in which individual who have accepted the faith message may be accepted into the local church, and we're going to look at that just now. First 2 is a committed Christian going from one Christian communion who has already been baptized by immersion as practiced by the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So that's one way. A member of a Seventh-day Adventist Church who because of a world's condition is unable to secure a letter of transfer from his or her home country. We've had situations where people have moved here, particularly as asylum seekers. There was war back home. In some cases, the church has burned down. There's no more records. They have no baptismal certificate. So if they have a baptismal certificate, that's even better. But if they profess and the pastor has met with them and has done his due diligence, then this is another way to join the church. The point 3 and 4, a member of the Seventh-day Adventist Church whose request for membership transfer has received no response for at least a year from the church where his or her membership is. So if you have been making a transfer request and it hasn't arrived for more than a year now, then obviously with due diligence, you contact the conference. If we can probably try through the division here to reach to them. But if all this has been tried and they still can't get a reply from the local church, then this will be another way to join the fellowship of the local church. And last but not least, an individual who has been a member, but whose membership has been misplaced or has been withdrawn because he or she was a missing member, yet who in reality has remained faithful to the Christian commitment. So again, the technicalities of if a person is ready or not is more to do with the pastoral team. What is important for you to remember is that these are the criteria for the profession of faith. However, I want you to note a couple of things when it comes to profession of faith. If the person meets one of the four above mentioned circumstances, they are accepted into the church fellowship by votes of the congregation. Remember, we said that we cannot move people in and out at our own free will. The clerk records the information into the ACMS to update the conference. So this decision, the votes of profession of faith, is done during the Sabbath normally at a members meeting, a duly called members meeting, when the pastor with the church clerk or the elder presents and move for acceptance of this new individual or individuals to be accepted. However, this is something that is more like a word of caution. Great care should be exercised in receiving members if they have formerly been members of some other churches in the denomination. Instances are not lacking of persons removed from membership in one church later presenting themselves to another church for membership on profession of faith. When a person applies for membership on profession of faith, earnest inquiries should be made concerning the applicant's former experience. This is to say, things happen and people like to take advantage of the system. So again, all you need to make sure is that you're confident that the pastoral team have done their due diligence. There are ways to do this. Pastors can contact pastors and find out about certain individuals, particularly if we know where they've come from. It's just good for these things to take place. When persons apply for membership on profession of faith, and it is found that they are still members of another church in the denomination, no steps should be taken to receive them into membership until church holding the membership grants their letters of transfer. So in other words, if someone comes to you and says, I would like to become a member of Nottingham Central, I'm going to use Nottingham Central, and I want to do it by profession of faith because I've been an Adventist. You go on ACMS, and that's why ACMS is so good. If the countries use it, you can do a quick search. If you find out that they've been a member somewhere, then you start the process of membership transfer. And it's good to hear from them, from that local church, to see what has been their experience with that particular individual. So this is hopefully a very straightforward diagram, two of them. And remember, I'm going to give you the slides, so it will be a PDF. And you will be able to look at all the slides, and hopefully when you have the recording, you can follow through. But this is the process of transfers in. So someone would like to move into the local church. First step is a person or the family requests a transfer into the church. When you come next time, you will see that they can do this through 7Me. A lot of people in South America use ACMS, and this is common practice these days. So they can bypass you and just make the request. You will get notification that they've made that request. But normally what happens is they will come to you and say, I've been coming to this church for a while. I would like to become a member here. So they come to you. Then the church clerk gets all the details, and you use ACMS to start the process. So we will show you how to, and there's videos also of it. You won't remember everything next week, but you will start the transfer process where you contact with the details you have. You need to find them first in the local church where the membership is held, and you make the transfer request. Third step, request is sent to the transferring church via ACMS. So you don't have to send an email, you don't have to contact anybody. As soon as you send a request, it pins to the other side. The church clerk there would get a notification via ACMS that someone wants to move out of the local church. The outgoing church votes to grant or deny the transfer request. So the process, we will see, it goes to the local church. They will have the vote there, and then they will make that decision if the person is in good and regular standing, or if there's any concerns. So if denied, sometimes it happens, clerks notify the pastor, the church board, and member that the transfer is not approved. So you don't go to the whole church, you go to the member in question. I wanted to make this clear, but the pastor and the church board would be made aware that, unfortunately, for some reason, which sometimes churches withhold it if it's very sensitive, but sometimes they share it. They'll say that we deny the transfer of membership. In most cases, it is granted. So if granted, that the church clerk takes the names to the church board, who recommends the congregation the transfer of acceptance. All right. So once it's been approved on ACMS, you take it to the next church board meeting, and the board will be able to recommend this. The church clerk publishes the names in the bulletin, and it is read twice over 2 consecutive Sabbaths, and the vote is finally taken on the second Sabbath. I'm sure you've experienced this. Even if you were not involved in it, you would have seen this done. Now, the date of the vote, the Sabbath in which the final vote was taken, is to be entered into ACMS to close the process. And once you've done that, then the other church clerk in the church where it's transferred from would receive the information, and they can mark them as transferred out, basically. Now, transferred out, since we're talking about that, it's very similar process, but just in case, we wanted to underline it from this perspective. So the church clerk receives a request for transfer out for one of the members in the local church. What do we do next? We take that name to the church board, who will need to make a recommendation to the wider congregation for that vote to be taken. In the same process, the local church, remember, will have 2 Sabbaths. And why 2 Sabbaths? The first reading is done. If anybody wants to make any comments with regards to that particular name, they can approach the pastoral team throughout that week and raise their case. If it's denied, so the church has the power to vote, because you voted into the church, is the church who has the power to make a decision on your membership. Obviously, the church clerk notifies the requested church that the transfer has not been approved. However, if it's granted, the vote has been updated on ACMS. Remember to put in the date that the vote was taken. The requesting clerk takes the name to their church boards. Remember the process. They recommend it to the church at large, and they do it over the 2 Sabbaths. Then the accepted vote date is entered into ACMS, and the process is then complete. So that's, in a nutshell, how the membership transfer is taking place in the Seventh-day Adventist Church at the moment, according to the church manual. All right. Okay, I see. Yes, Yvonne is reminding me that we need to make sure that the dates and the minutes. Remember, we need to have minutes for all those meetings, the church board and the business meetings or the members meetings. The minute number of those minutes have to be entered into ACMS when we process the transfer. All right, so we've come to the end of section 5 regarding joining the church through baptism, rebaptism, and profession of faith. Okay, Brenda, I see you've raised your hand.
Hi, Pastor. Thank you. Yeah, so I just wanted to know, since this is a matter that needs voting on, like for the transfers, if someone's transfer request maybe from another church is declined, what reasons could that be, and what does it mean for that person if they, like, let's say they're from Nigeria and they're now living in this country, they were active, they want to take part, does it mean that we don't accept them?
Yeah, so if a local church, for whatever reason, sometimes they are happy to share the reason, but if they feel it's too personal, then what happens? The pastors of the two congregations will get in touch to share in confidence what the reasons are. But it may be that, and I'm, obviously I'm going by the example you've given. But if the individual has left Nigeria with a lifestyle that is not in accordance with the Seventh-day Adventist Church, the local Seventh-day Adventist Church knows that this has been his lifestyle, but he's never made any amends. He's never recommitted his life to Christ. Yet he comes here, and now he wants to be a member, thinking that, yeah, I've put my life right. If the local church is not aware of that, and we will see now that it is an onus on the members who move away from the local church to still be in touch with the local church. You can't just assume that because I left 2 years ago and my membership is still there, then you would know of me. How can you know about people who've left your country or who've stopped attending church? So if the local church feels that there may be questions in his behavior, then the local church here needs to know about it. And in cases like this, pastors would obviously speak to them, speak to the individual, bring up some of those concerns, and there will be some clarification. And this is all a spiritual process. We're not just going by, bullet 1, bullet 2, bullet 3, but the pastor will need to sit down and each and every one of us have to be earnest in our relationship with God. And who are we trying to be kidding if we just want to bypass? The membership in the local church won't save you into the kingdom of God. It's the relationship you have with Him. Therefore, you need to put that right first before you publicly declare again that you uphold the principles of God. I hope that answers.
Yes,
okay.
thank you.
Okay. In the I have Patricia and then Kunle. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. And Janitha.
Hey, good morning again, Pastor. Thanks so much for presentation. The question is, does the conference have the records of all the members for all churches?
We have
just the local.
We have access to ACMS. So if you keep ACMS updated, that what you see, we see also here. But the difference is that we have access to all the churches. Where you can only see your local church, we see all the churches in the NEC. So you remember the relationship local churches have with the conference, particularly the secretarial department.
Yes.
We will not be able to do our work properly if the records that you need to keep at the local level are not in place.
All right.
Yeah.
No, thank you very much. Then is quite helpful, because then if you have access on CMS, it may be speed up, because if you don't have response from a church clerk or a pastor, then hopefully you have the records of who has been baptized because if he's in UK, right?
So we can produce reports in the same way that you produce reports, and
But
we
more-
can assist you.
Mhm.
And we do our best to assist as many church clerks as possible. But if we were to be responsible for doing this, then we would need to have more than one and a half budgets assigned for this response. I mean, church membership, it's only one fraction of what we do in Secretariat. That's why we really need your support, and for all the church clerks to really grasp how ACMS works. So when you produce the information, then we can use it accordingly. But if every church clerk was to come to the NEC and ask for the work to be done by the NEC, then we won't be doing anything else. And I mean this with no
Understood.
disrespect, but I think you
Understood. No, it's actually very good. Thanks so much for that, because I think as we have most of the church clerks here, as you pointed out, that is so important for them to be responsible when we communicate.
Yes.
And then one of the issues one issue quickly to mention is, because if a church clerk is not transferred, doesn't have the membership to that church they attend, and then they're being chosen by a church clerk,
Yeah.
then what's your suggestion? What would be the next step?
Yeah, so we've actually had this situation where an individual has been appointed as church clerk, but the membership is not even in the NEC. So if you're not a member in the local church, then you cannot, ACMS doesn't allow us to give you access. And it's designed as a safety net, even for pastors. If the membership is not in the NEC, they can never get access to the local churches, although they're employed to serve your district. So what needs to happen is we will then help you to make sure that the transfer for the church clerk is done, and then we, together with the church clerk, we will work. Hopefully, they will pick up ACMS, and then they can deal with the rest of the transfers that need to happen. So we will help you to release the bottleneck, because that's what we're saying. There's a lot of transfers, but nothing can happen because, including the church clerk, they're not transferred in. So to give you access to ACMS, we will help you out with the transfer. But this is where we need to work together, because remember, we can make the request through ACMS, but most of the work is done at the local level, where it needs to be taken to the church board, needs to be voted 2 weeks in a row. Sorry, not 2 weeks. It needs to be voted over the 2 weeks, and then you need to inform us. If these things don't happen, we can't just grant somebody the vote out on ACMS, because we don't work in silo.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks so much, Pastor.
No problem. Adekunle?
Good afternoon, Pastor.
Afternoon.
Thank you for the presentation. So I've just been made aware recently that you can request membership from places or countries where they don't use ACMS. So,
Yes.
and your slides also allude to that everything can be contained within the ACMS. So I have some processes for membership that are processed the old way, where I sent emails directly to the churches outside the country, and I mean, some have got the answers that they've granted the transfer, and some I haven't. So the ones that have got the transfer request granted, when I go to the ACMS to process that, I don't see an option that speaks to that process anymore. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe I've never really noticed that it was never there. So I'm trying to figure out what should be the option then,
Yes.
But I know now I can use the ACMS to have to contain everything. But the ones that I've done outside, how would I sort them out?
Yeah, very good question. So we will cover this more on ACMS next week. But it's basically like putting new members into the system now, because what you're saying is that outside of ACMS, you've done the groundwork, they've been voted in, and all we have to do now is just upload them as members in the local church. So yeah, that's something that can be done, and we will show you the process next week. In terms of using ACMS for churches let me go back a step. British Union Conference uses ACMS, but there are churches, and through ACMS you will see that there are countries that don't use ACMS. Now, the folks who design ACMS have made it easier for us in that you could use ACMS to send an email out and a QR code to the church clerk, wherever the request is being sent to. When they scan that QR code, they will be able to upload the information, and through ACMS, it comes back to us. So basically, you don't have to add the information anymore, because the church clerk at that end does that for you. It works, and it's a good tool. What I would say is that if you've already started the process and you're nearly there in terms of receiving correspondence from the other church, then it probably makes sense to just stick to that and not make anybody or what's the word, confused. Bring anybody into confusion because they now request, there's another request for the same person. But good news is that, like I said, we can use ACMS even for countries that don't have it, and that's something else. I saw something in the chats, but we can probably cover it later. By the way, Sister Yvonne is dealing with ACMS far more than I do, and she will be involved in the training next week. And yeah, we will cover a lot of these questions for you next week. So stay tuned, and hopefully we will be able to give you some support.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. One last hand is Janitha.
Thank you, Pastor. So my question is regarding the membership approval once we update it in the ACMS. So it's approved by the NEC. And how long does it take for the membership to get approved? I mean, I'm like an approximate time, not exactly this much time it's going to take, but roughly around how long will it take for the membership to get approved?
Okay, so I don't know exactly what you're referring to, but you mentioned the NEC. So let's, if your question is that you're making a request to the NEC Church for the transfer, the NEC Church is a virtual church which holds the members of the companies that we have within the NEC and some of the employees. I myself, I'm a member of the NEC Church. Now, the church board of the NEC Church is the NEC Executive Committee. We meet 6 times per year, once every 2 months. And normally that's what happens. We take the membership transfer requests at the duly called executive committees that we have. The next one is the 11th of February. So until we vote this, just like the church clerk, just like the church board would do it at the local level, we cannot action it on ACMS on behalf of the NEC Church. However, if your request for transfer has been sent to any other physical church, so let's say from Manchester, you're making a request to Birmingham, it is how soon they are able to process that. So it may be just like the NEC, that they have a church board happening next week, or it may be that it takes them 2-3 weeks or 4 or sometimes 2 months. But this is where the church clerk really needs to work with the pastor and say, Pastor, we cannot hold these things for too long. Therefore, we do need to have regularly. Generally speaking, church board should happen once a month, or once every 6 weeks, even if it's just for things like this. But it's at the decision of the local church. So does that answer your question, Janitha?
Yes, Pastor. So this is not dependent on the approval of the NEC, right? The church membership. If the approval happens locally, then that should be fine. Is that right?
Okay, so now you brought something else in. So are you making reference to a church plant?
No, I'm talking about if I'm say for example, me as a church clerk, I request for a membership transfer to another church, asking that these members would request a membership to my church. So if the church that I'm sending the request, if they respond, say within a week, and then we take it to the board and the board is happy with it. So does the process end there, saying, okay, these people are the the members of our church now, or should we also wait for the NEC also to add their details into your books and then get confirmation, and then we accept them as church members? I'm not sure because
I
I'm new to
understand
the
what you're saying. Yeah. So sorry to cut in. Do you want to finish your sentence?
No, that's fine. If you understood my question, Pastor.
Yeah, so the NEC only comes in when we have companies. That's the official term in ACMS, or church plants. This is not found in ACMS, but it's a common term that we use. So because you're not formally organized as a church, you come under the the supports, at least on ACMS, of the North England Conference. Therefore, anything you do at the local church, it needs to be voted at the executive committee level here. So that's where there may be a delay. So, but remember, there's always going to be at least 1 week. In fact, probably 2, because if the local church board needs to meet, make a recommendation to the church, they will have that Sabbath first reading. The second Sabbath is the second reading. That's when the vote takes place, and they can update ACMS. If that has come through, then you also have to vote them at the local level to say that they've been transferred through, and then you have the reading.
Thank you, Pastor. Yes, the reason why I asked this question is because my church is registered as a company. So that's the reason I asked this question.
I gather that, yeah. So simply because you are your local church currently is a company, the NEC still gives you support when it comes to ACMS. I don't want to complicate things, but in the past, church plants used to come under the mother church. So a mother church would plant, and then the system would work through the local church. Now, the way ACMS is designed is we have 2 categories of entities as churches. One is church, which is voted at session, and they are fully fledged. And then we have companies. Companies come under the North England Conference in principle. Now, at the local level, there may still be support from the mother church or the sister churches in the district, but when it comes to membership and voting things, it is the North England Conference Executive Committee.
Thank you, Pastor.
You're welcome. Okay, Shanair, yes.
Hi, Pastor. Quick one. I was just gonna ask regarding, companies and baptism. So if there's a company that comes under our church and there's a recent baptism, those members, would we just submit, say, a quarterly, a form like the quarterly report with their names added, and send that to yourselves? Because I'm not sure if we can add their records to ACMS directly.
Okay, Yvonne, do you want to come in? I know you're dealing with this more than I do, so.
Yeah, that's fine. No, you can't add for another company, Shanair. So you need to send that up to us. Most of the companies, if their church clerk is trained, they can add it in. Otherwise, it's sent to us to add in.
Okay, thank you.
You will receive a record of new membership with the baptismal forms when Yvonne Chambers send it. Just fill it in and send it back to us.
Okay,
All
thank
right.
you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. Just in the interest of time, we've got 15 minutes left. Let's deal with this section, and that is reporting a death and missing members. All right. So it is unfortunate, but it's the reality of life. While we still live on this earth, our loved ones will go to rest. If you look at the church manual, that's what it encourages us, that we use our God-given skills and try and get this the information that would be useful, just to create a bit of a record. Obviously, on ACMS you can record this person as deceased, which is fine. But remember, we're talking now a bit about the history of the church. In about 4 or 5 weeks from now in Manchester South, we have a sister who is going to be celebrating 100 years old. That's a wonderful milestone in the history of the local church, and those things have to be kept. Some sort of a report. And what I was going to also mention is, remember, you're not meant to be doing this alone. You can have people helping you out. You can ask the communication director of the local church, or a young person who is good with writing skills, just to write a short paragraph about the life of the person. But ideally, obviously, you are the representative of the local church as church clerk, and you can approach the family and get the necessary information for those details to be used in our records. Now, missing members. When members move, and I think this is where we had one of the questions earlier. This is an extract from page 72 of the current church manual, which we hope you'll be able to get a copy once we share the resources with you. When members move, they should inform the church clerk or elder of their new address. While remaining members of that church, they should report and send their tithe and offerings at least quarterly. If, however, members move without leaving a forwarding address and make no effort to contact or report to the church, and the church cannot locate them for at least 2 years, then the church may certify that it has tried without success to locate the members, and the members may be removed by a vote of the church. So this is the members meeting, the business meeting. The clerk should record in the membership records, and this is in inverted commas, whereabouts unknown, voted to designate as missing. So I think we had a question. I don't know if this answers the question, but the reality is we have a lot of things like this. And as in my experience as a pastor, we've had people who decided to keep their membership in one church, but they weren't, and they were active in another church. If we understand what membership is all about, it's not about status. Oh, I'm a member in this church and I'm a member. It's about being active where God has placed you to be. If you've made that decision to relocate to be in another area, then God wants to use you there. If you're not a member in the local church, you can't hold any position. You should never be able to vote on any decision that the local church takes. So why not move your membership to that church? That's how we should be. But sometimes we like to have honorarium membership status in some churches, and it's only making life harder, to be honest. And let me go on without trying to offend anybody, but even as pastors, sometimes we don't lead by example. I know we have pastors who keep their membership in a particular church, yet they hardly been there. They still serve as pastors, they're faithful, but their membership is at a church which they hardly visit, they hardly keep in touch with. It's all about relationships. That's why we have the body of Christ. And if all of a sudden you lose one of your limbs and it's behind you for 2-3 years, that doesn't look right. It doesn't feel right. So it is the same principle here. I think we finished. No, just before we come to the question, I wanted to read you this extract from Testimonies, Volume 7. Obviously, Sister White says, human beings are Christ's property, purchased by him at an infinite price, bound to him by love that he and his Father have manifested for them. How careful then we should be in our dealing with one another. Men have no right to follow their impulses and inclinations in dealing with fellow members who have erred. They should not even express their prejudices regarding the erring, for thus they place in other minds the leaven of evil. She continues to say, do not tell others of the wrong. One person is told, then another, and still another, and continually the report grows and the evil increases until the whole church is made to suffer. Settle the matter between thee and him alone. Now, I think we don't need to really unpack this, and time doesn't really allow us to do this at this time. But I think we all have to be careful. We heard of situations of people going somewhere else and the lifestyle. We wouldn't want people to talk about us behind our back. We need to encourage as much as possible our church family to do the same. Okay, there was a hand, so I'm going to honor that. We have Felicity.
Just a quick question with regards to the missing. We've had a few that we've put as missing. Is it that then, is it after 5, if you've reported them as missing, is it 5 years before they actually then get taken off your books and then sort of go to an NEC register?
Okay, I mean, Yvonne can help me out on this. So the 5-year principle comes from a corporate environment where you keep the information of an ex-employee for 5 years and then you can delete that. But within the church, we don't hold the information. I mean, on ACMS, once you remove them, they are removed. Now,
right, because I think we'd reported them as missing, so they were still showing on our membership, but had missing next to it.
If you have them missing, then look at that. Look at the balloons coming up. If you have them as missing, you have to wait for 2 years, due diligence, make sure that you covered all angles, showing that you've tried to reach out, but you just can't find them, and then you can vote them out. Sorry to say that bluntly, but record them as you remember the terminology is page 73 on the church manual there.
Yeah, because I mean we've got quite a few that have been over 2 years not at church, not interested in coming back and things like that. So that's I brought it to the church about that we need to write to them, ask them if they want to keep their membership or transfer. So I'm in the right to say we need to do this.
Yes, I mean just follow the church manual, and it's there. It's not about you being right. It's about what the church manual instructs us to do. And if you do get through to them and they want to keep their membership, then that's a different matter. But if you can't get through to them and you've tried everything, Yvonne is reminding us that once we do this, we need to keep a record of when we tried to contact them. So, like I said, it's not just a case of, okay, we want to get rid of this person, so let's just vote them out. All these things are part of a process of reconciliation, bringing people closer to God. So we're not in the business of pushing them away. But
Yep, thank you.
No problem. Shelley?
Thank you, Pastor. Mine is just a clarification on the missing members.
when you talk of missing members, I understand you're talking of those we've been trying to locate, but we can't find them. My case is, how about when we've been trying to contact them? Yes, we know they are here, but they're still not coming to church over 3 years. Are they still recorded under missing? I didn't hear you mention that, or I missed it.
No. So in this section, removals and apostasy, I think is going to cover it in this. So if I still don't answer your question after the last section here, please ask me again, and I will. But it's a different process. If you know where they are, you can't declare them as missing. There's a different process that we use. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, and that takes us swiftly into the last section for today, or this presentation. So we're talking about, what was the last section? It's removals and apostasy. All right, very sad moments, but nevertheless, they are necessary, not because we want to punish people, but because we want to remind people that they are in a relationship with God, and becoming part of the Seventh-day Adventist Church family. You also profess to upkeep the principles of this church. So when grievous sins are involved, there are two ways by which means or measures have to take place. It's censorship, and that is, if you look at the church manual, can be anything between 1 month to 12 months, depending on the severity of their actions, or this is quite severe, obviously, but it's removal from membership. Okay, and this is a very painful process for the church. And again, if you read the church manual, it's not used as. And remember the Testimonies, Volume 7, what Ellen White said. How dare we treat people who Jesus paid such a high price in a way in which we want to shine them away from his grace. These things should be used in a way that it brings people closer to him. And just like when trying to correct a child, you don't punish them because you hate them, but you just want to remind them that this is not a good behavior and it needs to be rectified. Okay, there are a couple of cautions here which I wanted to share with you. Ministers or churches are not to establish tests of fellowship. Therefore, if you hear that someone, I don't know if I should give examples, but it's not our business to test people up, to set them up to fail, basically would be the case. That's not for us. Our personal experience, it's summed up in the title. It's a personal experience with Christ, and we're not the judge here. He is ultimately the one who will separate the wheat and the tares. Voting is only at a duly called business meeting of the church. The church board cannot do it. Again, this has been highlighted time and time again. The church board acts on behalf of the church, but when it comes to these matters, we need to have a members meeting or a business meeting. These decisions cannot take place at the church board. The church board can only recommend. Removal of membership is voted by a majority vote of those present at the meeting. If only 10 people out of 50 votes, then it's not carried. Simple as that. The members has a right to be heard in his or her defense, so they should be informed that there will be a vote taken on this, and they can attend the meeting, and they should be given the space to put any case forward if that was to be his or her decision. Members are not dropped for not attendance. Okay, so this comes back to the point. Okay, just because you haven't seen them for so much time, it could be even 5 years, God forbid, because we haven't tried to reach out to them, then it shouldn't be that we just remove them for the sake of doing the audit on the books. All right, the second part of this is members must be notified that they are being considered for removal of membership. I've noticed this before, and I think this is where you will work together with your local pastor. There needs to be an official letter from the church to let them know that their names are being considered. A member removed can be reinstated. So you can be rebaptized. It's not by profession of faith, remember, it's through rebaptism. Because the church removed them from membership because of their, obviously, the lifestyle, the public sin. If it's something that can be resolved, things can be resolved without removal of membership and through communion. But once you've been removed, you can only become a member of the Seventh-day Adventist Church through rebaptism. A member has the right to appeal for reinstatement. And if you read the church manual, it says for those living in the US that a lawyer is not able to represent you at this meeting, at these meetings. But this doesn't apply here for us. Well, I don't know. Some people may want to bring their lawyer. You must drop a member on their personal request. So unfortunately, sometimes we have cases like this where someone specifically requests that they would like to cease to be members of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Again, due process is followed. The pastor contacts them, and if their decision is still, then we have to honor that. We cannot hold them as hostages within the Seventh-day Adventist Church. All right, that finishes my presentation, and it's a couple of minutes over. Do you have any questions on this point 7? And then I've got a couple more slides just to promote what we're doing next week and give you some more information. Okay. Again, if you want to put your hand up, just so I can manage if there's any questions. All right. Okay. Rona?
Yes, thank you, Pastor. The question, I have a couple of questions which is not related to your last presentation. It's just a general question, if you don't mind me asking.
I tell you what I'll do.
Yeah.
I'm happy to entertain all the questions, but let's finish this session. If there's no other questions on this, then we will stop the recording, and then I can stay behind. Those who want to listen, they're more than welcome to. But those who may need to leave because it's after 1 o'clock, they can do so. Is that okay? All right. So what I wanted to share with you is 7Me. We will plug this in next week a bit more. But if you haven't had the chance to download it yet, just go to your mobile device, either an Android or an Apple. It's free of charge. It's called 7Me. I think they're trying to drop the me out of the branding. It's only the number 7. But yeah, next week I'll show you from my device how it looks like. It's awesome in that you have access to certain resources. You can pay your tithe, even you can get your receipts for your tithe and offerings. You can be anywhere in the world and still return your offering to the local church on that particular day. So yeah, I'm not saying any more on that now, but we look forward to it. And then next week, obviously, we will be talking about ACMS and 7Me. So if this is something that you're really keen on, please make sure you attend. And we will start again at 10 o'clock. And hopefully you will learn more about ACMS. Last but not least, the email addresses, and I should probably remove myself from there. The email addresses for both myself and Yvonne are on the screen. You can also reach us via phone, but I guess in the line of work that we're doing and the information that is required, it's best to email us. But one thing that I wanted to do before, and if you would be so kind, I hope this works. I tried it last night. It's a Google form for a feedback. And if you just scan the QR code, there's only 5 questions with yes, no, or maybe. You don't have to spend a long time on it, but it's just a bit of feedback for us to know how this presentation has been for you, what you think can be done better next time around. So if you know how to use it, yeah, QR code, please do so now. But yeah, thank you so much. I think we will stop our presentation here and our recording, and then we will entertain any more questions that there are. Thank you so much for each and every one of you. May God bless you. And we look forward to engage soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Pastor Brand.